I know when we hear the word lockdown, we all freeze up and remember the COVID lockdowns and the devastation that the COVID lockdowns had on economies, on households, on cities, on countries, etc. I think there's a new type of lockdown that's about to happen. In fact, I think the lockdown's already started. This time, it's not a government-enforced lockdown due to a virus, but this time, it's a lockdown that's around energy. And the fact that the world is running out of energy because of this war. And as a result of the fact that they're running out of energy, they're asking residents to only use energy at a certain point in time. They're asking residents or factories to only be open at certain points in time. They're asking garbage collection trucks to only collect garbage once every 2 weeks instead of once a week. And this lockdown may be much, much, much scarier than the COVID lockdowns. And I'm going to break it down for you as to how likely these lockdowns are. In fact, they have already started. So we'll talk about, the likeliness that they'll actually spread. We'll talk about what the implications are. And then we'll talk about what happens to markets. Because one thing I'm noticing is that in the countries where these lockdowns are happening, the markets haven't yet responded like they should respond, right? And that's what I want to talk about in the show today. So it's going to be a slightly different show because it's not really just focused on crypto. But I think we need to pay attention because I think that if and when these lockdowns spread, or should I say when these lockdowns spread, the effect on the markets and the contagion effect that they're going to have is going to be absolutely huge. So that's what today's about. Let's get going, guys. People say in the 𝗙𝗘𝗔𝗧𝗪, max fear mongering, please. And it's not about max fear mongering. When I reported initially on COVID lockdowns and I said, the world is going to get locked down, people also said I was max fear mongering. And what happened a week or two later is we actually got the lockdown. So I think that we should be listening to this with an open mind. And I guess one of the reasons why we should be listening to this with an open mind is because they've already started. And unless something happens really quickly, really soon, then these energy lockdowns are going to spread. And the results could be, I'm not going to say, the results could be catastrophic. We could get to a point where we start getting food shortages. Now, I want to read you this because I think this is kind of where it ends. And we'll talk about the whole thing. It says, no fuel, no food. This is what comes next. An Australian farmer just exposed the reality most people don't see. It takes tens of thousands of liters of diesel just to grow and harvest a single crop. Now, imagine if the fuel's not there. No diesel means no harvesting. No harvesting means no transport. No transport means no reaching the shelves. This is not theory, it's already starting. Fuel shortages are building. Costs are rising. Deliveries are slowing. And this doesn't stop at Australia. Around 20% of the world's oil flows flow through the Strait of Hormuz, and that artery is under pressure. If that flow tightens, this becomes global. Food disruptions, price shocks, supply shortages. Most people are not prepared for how fast this can unfold. Because crises like this don't begin with empty shelves. They begin quietly, and then suddenly we get the empty shelves. Now, you want to know how quickly this crisis can spread? Well, let me show you some shocking data as modeled by Claude, right? This is a dashboard that shows you how many days of oil each country has left, right? So let's look at, for example, Vietnam. Vietnam has 6 days of oil left, right? Myanmar has 9 days of oil left. Cambodia has 17 days of oil left. Bangladesh has 14 days. Australia has 20 days of oil left. Sri Lanka has 24 days. Pakistan, 26 days. New Zealand, 39 days. Philippines, 41 days. Thailand, 44 days. And India, just think about what happens if India shuts down, 49 days. So we'll talk about that on the show today. It's not necessarily a crypto show, but it's a show that could affect all markets, including crypto markets. So if that sounds good to you, what I need you to do is just please do me a big favor. I've noticed that about 60% of you are watching, but you're not actually subscribed to the channel. I'm asking you for a big favor. If you subscribe to the channel, it just makes our jobs a lot easier. It gets a distribution out there. And if you smash the like button, that's like an extra bonus. I'm going to be here. I'm going to be bringing you crypto love and alpha. And all I need from you is just a simple favor. Subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, hit the like button. All right, let's get the show on the road, guys. So I want to start off before we talk about the lockdowns and whatever else. Just quickly look at the red bubbles today. I think there's multiple reasons for the red bubbles today, why these prices are down. I think the first reason is because of the Clarity Act. So I don't know if you guys, we spoke about the Clarity Act yesterday, and I mentioned to you that I thought that the proposed Clarity Act wording wasn't good wording. Now, the reason why it wasn't good wording is because with the current wording of the Clarity Act, it means that if you're holding USDC, just by holding USDC, you won't be earning what they call passive yield, which means that what you have to do in order to earn the yield is stake your USDC, deposit it into a deposit address, etc., etc. Now, one of the beauties about blockchain technology is that because it's digital and it's programmable, just by holding USDC, you could theoretically earn interest on the money. So imagine like you had money in your wallet, and just by having money in your wallet, you could have more money in your wallet. You wake up every morning or every second, and just by the fact that you have money in your wallet, you would be getting more money in your wallet. That's called passive yield, right? And that's one of the things one of the big advantages that blockchain allows that real world doesn't allow. Because if you're carrying US dollars in your wallet, you cannot give you more US dollars or give you return on the T-bill yield that the underlying dollars are holding. But with blockchain, you could actually do that. In the new wording of the Clarity Act, to protect the small regional banks in America who are petrified that if you all of a sudden start earning money just by virtue of the fact that you hold money, they blocked the wording and they basically said you cannot earn on passive yield. You cannot earn passive yield. You can only earn yield if you take an action, deposit it into a savings account, deposit it into an interest earning account. Now, I said yesterday that to me this was a very big hit for crypto. Why? Because imagine that you've got a technology that's capable of doing something and you don't allow the technology to do what it's capable of doing because you're protecting the legacy industry, right? So it's almost like saying, imagine that we launched the internet, and imagine that you would still force everybody to look at the internet on paper, right? The whole thing about the internet is that you can look at it on your phone. Imagine you said, no, you have to look at it on paper. You have to look at it in a magazine, right? That's the equivalent of what's happening now. Because this technology has the ability to do something that the old technology wasn't allowed to do, or wasn't able to do. No, it was obviously allowed to, but it wasn't technologically able to do it. And this technology, and now the custodians of the old technology want to block the holders of the new technology from doing that. And so the good news is the bad news. And the good news is the bad news. The good news is that Brian Armstrong has yet again rejected the Senate yield compromise. And a lot of people are very angry with Brian Armstrong about this. I mean, I don't know if you guys have been following. This guy says, "Dear Brian, it's time to stop." It started back in January with a narrative that made sense, letting people earn money on their own money, respect for that. But now enough, you're protecting your business fair, but this industry is bigger than Coinbase. If it doesn't move forward now, Senator 𝗙𝗏𝗏 says we're delaying this till 2030. Now, there are points on both sides, I'll be honest. The points on this side is that, the problem is that if we don't get a Clarity Act passed now, before, sometime around May, then the problem is that there's a good chance that because of the war, the Democrats win the House or the Senate or both, right? And then we don't get a Clarity Act ever. On the other side of it is, if we get a Clarity Act and the Clarity Act blocks one of the biggest technological advantages that this technology can actually do, then what have we actually achieved, right? That's the problem here. And so a lot of people are cross with Brian Armstrong. To be honest, on this one, I stand with Brian Armstrong. I think we should get the right legislation. I think we should get a legislation that allows this technology to do what it does. And I think he should keep pushing. Although I know that Trump and Bessent just want to get the Clarity Act passed, and David Sachs just want to get the Clarity Act passed. So let's see what actually happens. Right now, unfortunately, the odds of the Clarity Act actually getting passed in 2026 have again dropped back to like 56. They were at about 70% a day or two ago. So that is the news as it comes to the Clarity Act, and that's one of the reasons why the market's down today. The second reason why the market's down today is because of, I won't say escalation in the war, but a continuation of the war. Remember that yesterday we spoke about the narrative of peace. We said that the wartime narrative was shifting from a narrative of war to a narrative of peace talks and negotiations and stuff like that. At the same time, though, what we're hearing is that Iran is talking about ramping up defenses at this place called 𝗏𝗏𝗏 Island. They're laying mines, traps, etc. And why? Because this is the hub that controls 90% of Iran's oil exports. And what it seems from what we're hearing is that the US is trying to get troops to 𝗏𝗏 Island, to basically take control of 𝗏𝗏 Island. So that is why the markets are responding like this. That is why the markets are currently red. I think we still have to wait for later on this week, tomorrow, or maybe even over the weekend, for the results of the first round of peace talk negotiations between JD Vance and whoever the Iranian representatives are. Remember, those talks are scheduled to happen today and tomorrow. So let's see what actually happens there. All right, let's move over to the big topic of the day. And what got me thinking about this topic is the following headline, right? So the World Trade Organization came out and said that the global trade system is facing its most difficult and most significant disturbance in 8 decades. So in the last 80 or 90 years, the world trade hasn't faced a a problem or a disruption as big as the one that we're just talking about now. At the face of it, at the face of it, the whole thing is about the Strait of Hormuz, right? And it's this like small shipping lane that passes that is near Iran, and where 30% of the world's global the world's oil actually flows through. Now, this has been essentially closed since the 3rd or 4th of March, which is almost a month, and very little traffic and very little oil has been able to flow through the strait, right? And so initially you kind of say to yourself, all right, well, it's 20 to 30% of the world's oil, who cares? And it's just oil that has to flow through here. But now we're starting to see the repercussions of this. And the repercussions are much bigger than we anticipated. Like you saw this, Philippines has declared a national energy emergency as a result of the response to Iran. Now, the Philippines is a massive manufacturing country, right? Then you go to places like Australia. Gasoline and diesel are running out. Hundreds of gas stations have completely exhausted their supplies with their petrol and diesel supplies. In Thailand, in places like Pattaya, but there's many other places in Thailand, people are worried about an energy crisis, and so they're lining up to actually get energy. India has 60 days of fuel stocks left. Government calls a shortage a deliberate misinformation, but there are only 6 days left. And this is what's actually happening in India. This is like the lines, the panic that's setting in around energy. Now, this was written in the Good Morning Crypto newsletter, which is our free newsletter. If you ask Johnny just to put a link to the free newsletter below, right? You can subscribe to this for free. It was written before the show was actually done. But I want to walk you through what's actually going on here, right? So, as you know, the Strait of Hormuz is closed. And now Iran is actually saying, look, we're actually threatening another strait. We're threatening, not only are we threatening the Strait of Hormuz, but now we're going to this place called Bab al-Mandeb, which is the 4th largest shipping choke point, and about 12% of the world's oil passes through that. So what Iran's realizing is that they're realizing that they're doing a lot of damage to the world by blocking these shipping lanes, right? And so they're realizing that their route to win this war is to basically cripple the world's global economy and to create these energy shutdowns by disrupting the flow of trade. Now, tomorrow I'm going to drop a video on the other channel, on Crypto Insider, which basically talks about how this threatens the US as the global world power, right? Because the theory is that if the global superpower, the one that owns the world's reserve currency, cannot protect a key shipping lane in the world, then it's actually not the global shipping power. So maybe, and this is what the video is going to cover, it's a video about 𝗙𝗫𝗪's theory with 𝗙𝗫𝗪. We'll talk about how if the US doesn't win this fight, if the US cannot protect the Strait of Hormuz, it could actually damage them as a superpower. What Iran's realizing is that if they want to do damage, then just disrupt these very small straits. And the cost of disrupting the straits is actually very small, right? Like you want to disrupt the Strait of Hormuz, just lay a couple of mines. The US can send their bombers and their tanks and their ships and whatever else, but ultimately you just drop a couple of mines and not a single ship can actually pass through the Strait of Hormuz. In the meantime, Iran's making a lot of money here. They're charging a $2 million toll for vessels to pass. They obviously don't let any American or Israeli vessels or anything linked to America. They basically control the Strait of Hormuz and starting to make money out of the Strait of Hormuz. Now, here's the concern that's happened. The problem is that now countries who are reliant on things that pass through the Strait of Hormuz aren't getting them. And it's not the same as the US. And let me explain to you why, right? In the 1970s, in 1973, 1974, there were gas shortages in the United States. And what happened as a result of the gas shortages in the United States is a couple of things. The first thing is that inflation went up because the price of oil shot through the roof, right? The second thing that happened is unemployment also shot through the roof, right? So you had inflation going through the roof, you had unemployment going through the roof. The entire automobile industry shut down, the delivery industry shut down. Anything that relied on oil basically landed up shutting down, right? As a result of that, the United States started a strategic oil reserve in 1975. And the reason why they started the strategic oil reserve, because they realized that in economies, you can get a disruption of oil supply, either because of wars or because of OPEC or because of whatever it is. And as a result, what they did was they started a strategic oil reserve. Now, they weren't the only country to start a strategic oil reserve. Venezuela has a very big strategic oil reserve. Obviously, Saudi does. Iran obviously has a big strategic reserve. Here's a list of countries that have reasonable strategic oil reserves. And you can see the number of barrels that they basically have. The problem is that there's a whole lot of countries that find themselves on the bottom of this list. And as a result, they don't have strategic oil reserves, right? And the oil reserves that they have will only last them, as I said previously, a week, 6 days, 9 days, 17 days, 14 days, etc., etc. And this is where the problem comes in. Whilst the strait is closed, even though we read the headlines and the headlines are saying no oil is going through the strait, the real implications of that are that these countries are starting to run out of oil. Now, I live in a country where we run out of energy sometimes, and I can tell you that the implications of running out of oil or electricity or energy or gas or fertilizer are much bigger than you can actually imagine, right? So what are the implications? The implications are that the government starts to restrict the use of energy. And that is the new type of lockdown, which is an energy lockdown. It is a lockdown where eventually they could say to you, look, you need to stay at home because we don't want people in the streets. We don't want people expending unnecessary energy. We don't want people at work because we don't have enough oil. Think about a situation where, for example, Australia lands up running out of oil or energy or gas. Okay, what happens? I mean, for one, there's no deliveries into stores. For two, there's no waste collection. For three, essential services basically stop working, right? Four, you cannot get food to the shelves. If it lasts for a long period of time, you don't get food at all. You get a food shortage completely, right? And that's what you're starting to see at the moment. So this Mario Northall basically said, he said, if you still think this war only matters in the US and India, then just look at what's happening in India. In India, there's full-on panic. Now, the government's come out and said, look, guys, don't panic. We've still got 60 days of fuel. 60 days, that's 2 months. The war's already been going for a month. What if the war carries on for another 2 months? Then where does India with, one of the world's most populous countries and one of the world's biggest manufacturers, how does India actually get through this? Philippines declared a national state of emergency due to severe shortage of oil amid the Iran war. Details. Philippines imports 98% of its oil from the Gulf. With the gas prices up 100%, the government is also handing out 5,000 pesos, $83 to motorcycle and taxi drivers. Philippines has become the first country in the world to declare a national state of emergency due to the war. That's one country, that's Asia. Australians, no garbage collection. May have smelly streets as the waste management companies are forced to cut down because there's no energy. Philippines suspended its wholesale electricity spot market on Thursday because they want to reduce the energy supply. Fuel shortages in places like small countries like Mogadishu, etc. Thai people, in Thailand, the price of petrol going up at the pumps. In Australia, over 500 gas stations have now run out of fuel. Of these, 187 have completely run out of diesel, while 32 service stations had run out of different or a certain type of fuel. In India, certain industries are grinding to a halt. So that means people are not going to work because of no energy, etc., etc. So that's pretty much what's going on. It's not only oil, it's also this LNG gas. Remember that the LNG gas lines were bombed. Taiwan, whose electrical grid relies on LNG for 40% of the power generation, has an LNG emergency stockpile that will last around 11 days. Taiwan may be forced to rotation power to reduce electricity to its industrial sector. Okay, that means that the biggest chip manufacturing country in the world, the biggest semiconductor manufacturing country in the world, has 11 days of a stockpile for LNG, which powers the electricity grid. Are you starting to see what's going to happen here? If we don't get quick resolution in the war, then the problem is that I don't think that markets have started to price in the effects of what's about to happen. Major countries are now facing blackouts. We're talking about factory shutdowns, power rationing, and emergency measures as the Strait of Hormuz stays closed and oil supply gets squeezed. Okay, this is exactly why depending on unstable foreign choke points was always risky. So this is what's going on. Now, how does this end, right? So unfortunately, this is a real scenario, and I don't think we're anywhere near this yet. But if it doesn't resolve pretty soon, this is a real scenario. If you don't have fuel, you don't have food. Because if you don't have fuel, you are not able to deliver the food. you are not able to harvest the food. Every part of the food manufacturing process relies on diesel, fuel, gas, etc., which means that eventually what happens is, first there is a lack of energy, then people are forced to lock down and to start consuming less. And then once everyone has consumed less or starts consuming less, then eventually you start running out. And people, the problem is, this is like, the bank run theory, that if you think that a country is going to run out of food or a country is going to run out of fuel, what you do is, everybody, like in COVID, remember everyone in COVID ran to get toilet paper of all things. Well, it's exactly the same thing. People are going to run to get whatever food they can get, and that's going to cause an even bigger shortage. Now, here's where this affects markets, right? I don't think that markets have priced this in yet. And I'll tell you why I don't think that markets have priced this in yet. I'll show you just a couple of examples. This is the Taipei Stock Exchange Index Futures. They're trading at pretty much all-time highs. We've just read that they have 11 days of LNG gas supplies that remain. India, which again, 2 months from now, they may run out of fuel. Their markets are only down from top to where they are today, 10%. They're down 10%. If you look at Australia, where we've just read what's going on, the Australian markets are down 7% from their all-time highs. 7%. Now, to give you perspective, if we look at where they were in April last year, which is about a year ago, they were they were up 30% since April, right? So they've only corrected 10%. My concern here is that it feels like there's a disconnect between markets and what could happen, right? It feels to me like Iran knows that they are in the driving seat here and that they can play as many games as they want, and that the negotiations could be a lot more complicated than we thought. And if that does happen, then I think what's going to happen is that's going to start to impact markets. So what's the play? The play is to have cash available. Now, when I say have cash available, for many reasons. One is, if you live in any of these countries, have cash available, because you don't know how expensive food is going to get. You don't know how expensive gas is going to get. When there is very limited supply, people are not going to take, it could disrupt the banking system. Have cash available. Number two, have cash available to buy the dip, because at some point markets are going to correct on this news. When they do, have your stash of money ready to be able to buy the panic on the Indian Stock Exchange or the New York Stock Exchange or whatever stock exchange it is, right? Have cash ready for these opportunities. This is a real scenario. Again, I'm not saying that we are in absolute lockdowns now, but I'm saying that we are heading towards a world where we're getting lockdowns, or we could get lockdowns. And they may not be a lockdown where you have to wear a K95 mask and not allowed to touch each other, etc. But there are lockdowns where you will not be allowed to travel on the roads. There will be no gas. Any gas that will be available will be for essential services only. And you've got to prepare yourself that may actually happen. Do I think it will? I think we're going to be able to avert this. But do I think we should be prepared and we should have some money on the side just in case? Definitely. All right, let me know what you thought of this. Again, it wasn't really a crypto show. Someone says, fertilizer too. You're dead right. Here, I've got this tweet for you that says, fertilizer prices are skyrocketing. New Orleans granular urea prices, blah, blah. So the fertilizer, because again, fertilizer also flows through the Strait of Hormuz. Now, some people say, oh, it's only fertilizer. It's basically shit. But it's not like that. You need fertilizer with all the crops. Plastics rely on oil. You're starting to get it now, right? You're starting to get it now. You're starting to get it now. That's how serious this war actually is. So if you thought that this war was just around the Strait of Hormuz, it's not just around the Strait of Hormuz. It's much bigger than the Strait of Hormuz. You got it. All right, chaps, I want to talk to you quickly about a special which I saw today, one of our sponsors. The sponsor is CoinW. They are a non-KYC exchange. In other words, they don't require you to do KYC. The reason why I want to talk to you about this is because they have a crazy bonus going on at the moment, right? And again, I only talk to you guys when I think, okay, here's the link to subscribe to the free newsletter. Okay, we'll put in the thing. The special looks something like this. I'll bring it to you so that you guys can see it. And then in the meantime, Hardis and Johnny will actually put the link in. If you deposit $300, you get $60 bonus. If you deposit $500, you get $100 bonus. If you deposit $3,000, you get $250 bonus. $10,000, $1,500 bonus. $100,000, $10,000 bonus. So it's called a super deposit bonus. Now again, you can deposit money. You can then earn your super deposit. You can trade with a super deposit, and then you can just withdraw your money. You can do that, right? So go and have a look at it. I will see you guys again tomorrow. It helps. Number one, it helps you because you actually get these amazing deposit bonuses. And number two, it actually helps the channel. The link will be there in 5.
It's there.
4. Oh, it's already there. It's already there. Go down to the link and you can see the link. You can click the link and you can actually do it. All right, chaps. I will see you guys again tomorrow. Until then, trade well, my friends.